Greetings and thank you so much for participating in tonight's Black Domer series. My name is Dr. Kendra Washington Bass, and I proudly serve as the chair of the Black Alumni of Notre Dame. It is my honor and my privilege to serve, and I am so happy that you are here to join us. Just a special note, we had over 7,000 people register for the Black Domer Series 2 this year, and we're so looking forward to the conversation today. Tonight is the third event in honoring Black History Month and celebrating the contributions of Black Domers, as well as discussing aspects of Black life, culture, politics, spirituality, and well-being. It is our hope that over the course of these few weeks of programming that we not only build a community within ourselves, but a larger community within the Notre Dame family to reflect on the contributions made by our esteemed Black alumni. The Black Alumni of Notre Dame was founded in the mid-1980s to enhance the presence and experiences of African Americans across the Notre Dame family. This is inclusive of the staff, faculty, students, administration, and of course, our illustrious alumni and alumnae. We hope that you find the Black Domer series insightful, thoughtful, engaging, and especially actionable. You take the tools and the lessons and use them to be a force for good for the Notre Dame family. At this time, I want to thank our wonderful sponsors. I want to thank our co-sponsors, ThinkND. I want to thank Irish Compass. And I want to thank the Notre Dame Alumni Association. Specifically, I want to thank our guests. Over the past 3 weeks, we've had wonderful guests who've given their time, their energy, resources, and their expertise to enrich our lives and help us, again, be a force for good. Now, if you have any questions during tonight's webinar, please feel free to drop them inside a chat that we will provide for you. It's a Google document. You will be asked to add some questions there, and there'll be a point in time in the webinar where we'll move to questions and answers, and we will hope to be able to get to all of them. Now, if we cannot, we'll make sure to address these in subsequent sessions or in some of our other engagements throughout the year. This will allow us to effectively facilitate the questions, but it'll also allow us to have more time with our illustrious guests. Now, last week, we had the honor and privilege to pay homage to one of the most important ancestors in our culture, and that is Miss Fannie Lou Hamer, known as a civil rights icon and a civil rights activist. We were able to see the screening of the short Fannie, which was directed by our 1994 alumnus, Christine Swanson, and was acted by Anjanou Ellis Taylor, Academy Award nominated actress. We were able to listen to the conversation moderated by Dr. Scott Barton, and it really just helped us to understand that we have more work to do, which is why programming like this is critical. Well, tonight we talk about, so what happens when we achieve certain successes within our culture? And we're looking at, so some of our alumni have been trailblazers. And so what does that mean? And so tonight's topic is blazing trails in 21st century business and entrepreneurship. And we are pleased to feature 4 esteemed Notre Dame Black alumnus who have risen to C-suite level within their respective fields. While they do share some commonalities, you will find that they have taken diverse approaches to individual leadership journeys. And in them, we have a public company leadership, nonprofit founder, private held business entrepreneur, and a private equity-backed executive. Just saying that is a mouthful, and I can't wait to understand the great work that they do. And through their stories, lessons they've learned, and insights that they will share, we hope that you'll see the genius and also have the awareness of how they were able to do this through their leadership. Moderating the discussion tonight is going to be our accomplished Dr. Paige Jackson, who currently serves as the Notre Dame Association Director for Law and Graduate Business. In this capacity, Dr. Jackson, a proud Detroit native, she made sure to remind us of that earlier, she is responsible for the overall giving of 2 societies, the Order of St. Thomas More and the John Cardinal O'Hara Society. Dr. Jackson, who has been dedicated to this institution since 2017, is committed to building the relationships with alumni who share the commitment to making a positive impact within the realm of law and graduate business, ensuring they remain, again, a force for good. So please join me and the rest of our lovely folks in welcoming the esteemed Dr. Page.
Thank you, Dr. Washington. Tonight, we are in such for a treat. We have with us 4 business trailblazers who are making their mark in the world. And we have the opportunity through their stories to learn and grow together. First, let us please welcome Christine Fisher, EMBA class of 2012. Christina serves as the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. In her role as CFO, she is responsible for $900 million in committed capital from 38 entities and $15 billion in retirement assets. That's $1 billion with a B. Welcome, Christine. Next, we have Dr. Leon Jackson, MBA class of 2019. Leon is the founder and CEO of the Diversity and Leadership Program, which aims to close the opportunity gaps, for marginalized groups. Since its founding in 2021, over 84% of the participants have received promotions, with 17 reaching executive level positions and 6 moving to CEO roles. The program has served as a pipeline for the Notre Dame Business School program, with over 30 graduates from the program who are now enrolled in the Notre Dame Master's Program. Welcome, Dr. Jackson. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Rashad Johnson. He's part of the MBA class of 2008. Rashad is the president and CEO of Armour Roderick, one of the biggest Black-owned infrastructures, engineering, and construction firms in the United States of America. For 4 consecutive years, the firm has ranked in the top 20 on the Crane Chicago's business list of 50 fastest growing companies in the Chicagoland. It must be noted that nearly 60% of Armour Roderick workforce in leadership is diverse, with 35 plus points above the industry average. Welcome, Rashad. Finally, let's welcome Jimmy Rayford, MBA class of 2012. Jimmy is the CEO of Diller Wholesale, a private equity-backed firm specializing in building product solutions for construction companies. Since taking over the reins in 2020, Jimmy has built a people-first, high-performance culture. During this time with the company, Jimmy has spearheaded the best financial performance in the 60-year history of the company, which significantly is proving team engagement and retention. Jimmy also serves as the vice president for the Black Alumni Advisory Board. So welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you.
All right, so we have everyone here, and we're going to get into some questions. And I just want to remind our guests that a link has been shared for you to submit your questions. So I know that I've shared a little bit just about your background, but I would really love to understand your introduction to the Notre Dame community. How did it happen? How did Notre Dame become a part of your story? I will just start with Christine because she's wearing my favorite color. Christina.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Paige, and good evening, everybody. Red does happen to be my favorite color as well. So how I got to Notre Dame. So actually, I would say from an educational standpoint, getting an MBA at some point had always been on my list of personal and professional goals. And I started my career in management consulting. So with the travel and long hours, which used to be the life of a consultant in the good old days, everyone's kind of kinder, gentler now in a post-pandemic world. But I didn't take the time to pursue graduate education. And so I made a transition from consulting, and I was working at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago at the time. And really, I was looking for business school to help prepare me for executive leadership. I was looking for the networking, the education, and an opportunity. I was already a business professional, but the opportunity to really excel in areas of leadership, executive leadership in particular, and to accelerate my growth. And so as I looked at programs around the Chicagoland area, as you will know, in this area, there are many really strong MBA programs in the Midwest. What stood out to me about the Notre Dame program was really the focus on values-based leadership. The opportunity to have strategy and finance and accounting and marketing and all the stuff we typically do in business school, but in particular, the focus on doing well by doing good. And that as business professionals, our goal is less about the profit making and the money, which all of that is good, but how are we using that to be good citizens in the country and in the world? And so that's what drew me to the program at Notre Dame. And it's been one of the best decisions I've made personally and professionally in recent times.
Thank you, Christina. I know that Jimmy was your cohort, so I would love to be able to ask more about him and how has this value-based leadership impacted you in your journey in business as a result of choosing Notre Dame.
Sure. So I was almost 15 years into my career when I went back to Notre Dame in the executive program out of Chicago that Christina was also in. And I had mostly engineering and operations background, but I had decided that I wanted to get more into general management. So for me, I utilized the MBA to round out my experience, so I could go get some of those experience without having to go check all of those boxes in the workplace. Everyone's timing is different. The timing for me was perfect because I was literally taking the things that I learned on Friday and Saturday and implementing them on Monday. So it was real live application for me. Like Christina said, the values-based part of the program was really significant and drew me to it, as well as the reputation of and the prestige of the brand and how the alumni are known to take care of each other. So in terms of my application on the value side, I had worked for some real hard driving, almost results at all costs organizations, and being able to look through the lens of values and ethics and investment in people to balance out, what I had learned on the operations side, kind of helped formed the ultimate mission and values that I have here at Dealers Wholesale in terms of simultaneously being a people first and results focused organization. Notre Dame on that people first and the value side was instrumental because I wasn't necessarily picking that up through some of the cultures I had worked in up until that point.
Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that. One of the things that really stuck out, and I would love to put this question to Rashad, is that immediate application as it relates to the ethical leadership. And I know that Rashad doing work that he does, and also Leon, Dr. Leon too, how has the application of value-based leadership, ethical leadership applied to your realm of work and things that you do, especially in the DEI leadership program and things of that nature? So one of you are.
Sure. So I'll start. So I started my firm in 2005 and I started the program in 2006 with the specific understanding that I needed to learn business skills very fast. And so you talk about direct application. When we were in class, my cohort, our marketing plan, our operations plan, everything was really based off my business. And so I was able to take a business plan that I had developed for class and walked into a bank and got an unsecured loan. So direct application 101 for me. But the values-based piece of it is, as I'm starting this firm as CEO, it was important for me because one of the things that we learned was the values of a firm and the culture of a firm typically take on the culture of its leadership. And in doing so, I wanted to make sure that I was setting the foundation in my firm for a values-based firm. We provide solutions to clients for all types of infrastructure things, but everyone in my firm, no matter what their race, creed, or color, understand that we are going to serve underserved communities in the process. And we are going to mentor and we are going to help. And that is woven into the fabric of my firm. So that now that we have 300 people across the country, every city we have an office in, we partner with the grade school to show them about STEM. And I don't say STEAM, unfortunately. Arts, someone else has to do it. I'm a STEM guy, but more importantly, you know, when we partner with that school, specifically in grade school, because I believe high school is too late. I think we have to get to the students before. I think high school has too many competing interests. And if you don't love math going into high school, you're not going to develop a love for math in high school. And so we partner with grade schools all across the country, wherever we have an office, and we bring in engineers every month and have programs to show them that you can be an engineer, you can have your own firm. I'm a firm believer in you can't be it if you can't see it. And so I'm trying to show it to as many young kids as I can.
Thank you, Rashad. Dr. Leon, would you like to add on to that, just from your
absolutely.
perspective?
Yes, ma'am. So really what we try to do with diversity and leadership is we look at ourselves as a firm designed to help usher in the next generation of executive level leaders. And at the heart of that is knowing that there are very talented ethnic minorities and women out there who are not given the opportunity to demonstrate their capacity as leaders. And so how do you create a platform or forums where they can learn and grow and be challenged in such a way that they also are safe to make mistakes, where they are welcomed and with the differences that they bring. And the differences that we bring are highlighted rather than looked down upon, because we bring a unique perspective to business, to community, to life. And as a result, oftentimes when we step into these other schools, these other spaces, we're asked to kind of put those to the side while we engage. And that's what I appreciated about Notre Dame, was that I got to be me and show up as me daily. And my when I walked in the door, I'm a guy, I wear earrings and I have tattoos, and I walked in, I had my earrings in, and I had a polo shirt on, and I wanted them to know who I was, and I did it to make a statement, but it was amazing to feel that they accepted me no matter what I had on, and no matter what I had on that day. I think I would have had a similar response. And so the classmates and the individuals I got the chance to meet and build with, some of them are friends to this very day, and just really excited about the opportunity to share that with others who also seek what I sought, validation, support, and a home. And Notre Dame became that for me, so much so that I built a whole program around helping get folks to Notre Dame because I believe in it that much. And so it's been an amazing journey. In 2 years, we've sent, well over 30 students to Notre Dame for the Executive MBA program. And I'm excited to say that, we have about another 20 to 25 that are looking to enroll in August. So, it's a special place, and I'm not even a homer. I'm not even a Notre Dame fan naturally. I'm just being honest. I'm a Miami Hurricane fan, just throwing it out there. But and the whole time I'm like, I don't get it. Like, what is this thing? And then you get to campus and you're like, I get it. It makes sense now. And so to be able to engage in such a way and support the institution in such a way is an amazing feeling, because now I get to invite people to engage and enjoy something that I've really come to enjoy and love.
Thank you, Leon. I don't know if it's the Jackson in us, but I definitely understand where you're coming from and resonate with that, of just trying to, being from Detroit. In Notre Dame, Indiana, this has been a complete opposite. So to understand what it's like once you're in it. And so I guess, like, my next question, when you talked about the validation and the support, I'm going to first start with Jimmy and then head over to Christina for these questions for answers. But I would love to know, at what point during your career had you had to face a really and pivotal decision that could have impacted the outcome of where you currently are, a fork in the road, if you will. And the second part of that is, in the process of your success, and that's me assuming that Notre Dame had an influence in your success, what has that been like when trying to extend that same success to your family, and or if there's been any type of feelings of guilt because you've made the success?
I can go. I can go first. I mean, I have been fortunate that for literally my entire career up until the last 4 years since I've been at Dealers Wholesale, I had a consistent manager, mentor during that entire stretch, going back, I'm talking from 1998, through 2020. And a Black man, 10 years older than me, right? So we're, into the same things. We could talk the same language. And we didn't work together during that entire span of time, but that relationship will always existed. And, he would leave somewhere and eventually I would join him. We worked, 4 different companies over that stretch. But not all the time, whenever we left each other, it was him leaving, pursuing a different opportunity. So when I took this role here at Dealers Wholesale, it was actually the first time where I was resigning to him. And, he was, if you saw us in the conference room, you would have no idea the extent of our personal relationship, because he did not take it easy on me by any stretch of the imagination. But what I knew was when I wasn't in the room, there was always someone in the room advocating for my behalf. And I've been fortunate. So it was a fork in the road, because I was almost thinking, for a large part of my career, it's not a bad gig, being his number two, as he continues to climb. So the fork for me was whether or not I wanted to step out, kind of from his number two and go do my own thing in terms of taking the role of CEO here as Dealers Wholesale. So there was a risk factor to it. There was a, am I really sure I have everything that I need in order to make that step? Like, literally, how am I actually going to tell this guy that I'm leaving? But he responded, just the way I thought he would respond. And we had, a couple bottles of wine that night after I told him. So that was a decision for me in terms of, did I really want the top seat? And it really came back to values. I mean, while we were very similar in a lot of different ways, we were different in terms of our belief around company culture. And I ultimately concluded that I could not really set the stage for what I wanted in a company culture in the number two seat. I had to do that in the number one seat to create the culture that I wanted to have for an organization. So, it was a decision, but either path was going to be fine, right? So, but it was a fork in the road for me, kind of determining that I actually wanted to pursue the actual CEO route.
Thank you, Jimmy. I really appreciate that. And I think that, ultimately, when we are unpacking our passions and things of that nature, there is going to become you have to ask that question, that values-based question, and is there a level of alignment with whomever you are connecting yourself with? So thank you for explaining that so well. And Christina, I would love to hear, your fork in the road experience as to like this big challenge in your career and where you had to decide how you would proceed for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned before, I started my career in management consulting in 1997 out of undergrad, and that was, really kind of a time in management consulting for those of you who had great careers in consulting before it is the inclusive and mentoring and collegial place that they are today. It used to be Sunday to Friday, get there, up or out. Very competitive sort of environment. And so I spent about 12 years in management consulting, learned a great deal. I wouldn't trade it for the world. All the companies that are on my resume, thank you. It helped make me the professional that I am today. But my experience, very different than Jimmy. I kind of grew up there. I'd kind of worked my way. I'd stumbled a few times. And it was difficult, but it really built a lot of character and resilience in me. And so when I got to the place where I was about 3 years or so from the partnership, that was my fork in the road. The next step for me was really to make the push to be a partner at the firm I was at the time. And I had to decide, did I want to make that push and get to, the top, as it were, to be a partner, or did I want to change my career at that time? And I made the decision that the business development piece just wasn't my personality. I enjoyed client work, working with people, problem solving, managing people. That was good. But the business development piece really wasn't aligned with my skill set or interests. And so I actually made a decision to take a step back in my career. When I left consulting, I was a pretty high level, one step for partner, and I went to the Federal Reserve Bank as an individual contributor. And so I took a demotion and I took a pay cut to transition my career and start over as an individual contributor at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. And so I was a high level individual contributor, but I didn't have a team. I was brand new there, and I had to rebuild. And so that was a pivotal point in my career to make the decision. And again, it really was what turned out to be a great pivot, an opportunity for me to rebuild. It was during my time at the Fed that I went to the executive MBA program at Notre Dame, and really launched my career in what is now corporate finance. And so I think, my lesson, my takeaway from that is sometimes it is not always up. Sometimes you may take a step back to take 3 steps forward. That is my story. But of course, you have to make the educated calculation that is best for you in your career. And I would say because of that experience where I didn't at the time, at least at the company I worked, had a lot of mentors or sponsors or anything of that nature, I make it my business to be a mentor, to be a sponsor, to advocate for people who will never make it into the room. And I think if for those of us who are so blessed and fortunate to get to the positions that we're in, to me, trailblazing is about blazing the trail and opening it up for other people. And I think the notion of that is very aligned with the values and the focus of Notre Dame, and something that I take very passionately to heart.
Christina, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. My question from that, and this, I'm asking this to everyone, because you talked about having to pivot, right? And I know, I'm sure some of our guests who are here with us today, maybe they're students. It was even myself personally, as an undergrad, I had this very concrete plan of how my life was going to go and what was going to happen and what I was going to do and what I was going to achieve. And so when speaking about pivoting, right, and being able to understand that alignment, were there any particular fears that that ruminated in your mind that you had to overcome, that maybe some of our current students who are up against this particular challenge of like, do I stay the course or is it time to pivot? What was the one thing that says, hey, it's not for me to stay the course, it's time to pivot so that we can move forward with progress?
I'm gonna take this question, but
Go
I'm gonna
ahead.
answer it slightly differently. And I'll say that entrepreneurship is not for the faint at heart. It is some significant sacrifice. And I don't know if you heard me say significant. It's some real sacrifice. And I had 4 very distinct moments in my career where I quit my company. I was done.
Really?
I was absolutely done. I'm like, I can make so much more money going to work for somebody else. I'm tired of being broke. I'm on this hustle. I'm on this grind. I don't see light at the end of the tunnel. I can't see around the corner. And I had a conversation with my dad. My dad retired from the post office. And he said, okay, let's evaluate it. Let's talk about this pivot that you're about to take.
Right.
What are you going to do? I was like, I'm going to be the Chicago lead for this multinational engineering firm. I'm going to make a ton of money. And he said, and for that much money, they are going to work your ass to death. And if you are going to work your ass off, why shouldn't it be for you? Wow. And so in that moment, I turned down a significant job, a whole lot of money at a very young age, and kept the course. I had to evaluate. I had just gotten married. I had a child on the way. Everything in me was saying, this ain't it. It's not the time. You got to go for security. So I say that to say, if you are trying or thinking about being an entrepreneur, there is no such thing as the right time. There will always be a reason why you should not do it. You will never have enough money. You will never have enough education. You will never have enough experience. You will never be at the right time in your life. You will never not have a mortgage or a family. You will never not, there is no such thing as the perfect time to take a risk and a gamble on yourself. No such thing. There will always be a reason why you shouldn't. And so in my opinion, if you're solid with yourself and you're going to bet on anybody else and you're looking at that pivot, if you really believe in yourself, maybe the pivot isn't the best thing for you. Maybe you should stay the course. I say that 19 years in business, and we've turned the corner and made some significant strides since then. But man, honestly, that first 10 years, it is not for the faint at heart.
Thank you, Rashad. Would anybody else like to follow up behind that to offer a different perspective before I move on to the next question? Because I think this is really important, especially when we have that. But Leon, I would love to hear your perspective.
I appreciate it. I'll keep it short, Jimmy. I know you want to contribute. I would agree with Rashad. I really experienced that here in November, where I'd been the chancellor of a college, a local college. When I walked in, there were 11 students in the whole college. When I left, there were about 400 students in the college. So in a 2-year span, we were able to grow significantly. And when they handed me the keys to this thing, they had no clue how to get this going. They had run it for 5 years prior to me. It was, do whatever it takes to get this thing going. And, I made some changes in personnel. I made some changes in how we approach the students. I made some changes, just across the board. And we started having great success. And right around, September, all of a sudden they knew better, right? All of a sudden they knew how they should have done it. And, maybe you should, not even maybe you should, but hey, you should do it this way. It's like, well, where were you a couple years ago when I was with 11 kids? Did you know then what I should do? And I liken it to a car. I live in Indianapolis, where we're having All-Star. But I liken it to having a car, and they hand you the keys to this Porsche, and the Porsche has no wheels, no gas, and no steering wheel. And they say, get this thing to Chicago. And Chicago from here is about 2.5 hours, 3 if you're not motivated driver. I'm a little motivated, so I get there pretty quickly. And you drive and you drive and you drive and you're figuring this thing out, and you get it to Gary, which is right across the bridge, from Chicago. And then all of a sudden they say, you know what, we got it from here. We got this figured out. It's like, well, where were you in Lafayette and in some of those rural towns where there were no lights and no gas stations for miles? Where were you then? Where was your expertise then? So in that experience, I had to say, you know what, you can have it. And I luckily I had started the diversity and leadership program 2 years ago, and was able to pivot and be a full-time entrepreneur and really push this program. It was easy to make the move, in the sense that I believe in the work that we do, and I love the work that we do. It was certainly challenging in that my kids go to private school, so they want their tuition money. So it was a difficult choice, but for me it was the right choice. But understanding that I would have to make sacrifices. I can't wait till I'm 10, 15 years in the game like Rashad, and I can talk about way back when. But yeah, at this point, it's a grind, but I love it, and I'm motivated by the people I get to serve on a day-to-day basis and on a week-to-week basis, and truly having partners like Notre Dame makes it a lot easier, because people believe in the brand, and when I go and talk to other universities, Notre Dame is the standard. And so it becomes very easy to have some of those conversations because I have such a strong brand, supporting me and as a part of the program. But that would be my experience.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. I really appreciate that. I want to take the conversation in a bit of a different direction because everyone on this panel is extremely successful, and we have to talk about money. And so I would be curious to talk about what your relationship is with money and how that has impacted your success and influence in your personal life. And the last part, we talked about evaluating in a couple of things. What types of things in your life should one consider when evaluating trying to develop the wealth?
So I'm a firm believer that wealth is really about knowledge. Let me explain.
Okay.
Jimmy and I belong to this group, and that's how we met. It's Black CEOs across the country. And it's what is it, Jimmy? About 100 of us? And that's actually worldwide.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 100 of us worldwide. And we meet monthly, we talk about challenges, et cetera. But we're a subset of a much larger group of CEOs. And what I found is we are novices when it comes to Black
Say
folk.
more.
We're just now in our generation finding out about ways to create, generate, maintain, and keep wealth. Whereas, dare I say, the others have had 2 and 3 generations of the same things that we're just learning about. Whether or not it's investments. I mean, I can't tell you how many investments I've had access to since belonging to this group of CEOs that I didn't even know existed. And I'm talking about investments that guarantee 25 and 30% annual return. What? We're playing stock market like we made it, when in reality, there are investments that people make with millions of dollars that they guarantee 25 annual % return. And I didn't know about it because I didn't have access to it. And so as I'm learning about it, as I get more access to it, I'm telling the world. I'm telling everybody I can. Make your $100, I can make it 125. I listen, because knowledge, wealth in this country is all about knowledge. It's all about where you can figure out how to make your money work for you. and they have figured it out, and we're just now figuring it out. We are generations behind, and we got a lot of catching up to do.
I absolutely, like I'm right here with you. I think what you said was great. One of the things, as some people may know, I worked in student affairs prior to in my current role. And when engaging with and talking to some of my students, and even as somebody who is quasi first generational, there could be the pressures of when you are trying to be successful, but you also want to extend that success and equity to your family. So sometimes it can be hard to develop wealth because you have to give back first to help bring up. Have you all faced some of those similar challenges, or help us understand what that transition was like in between understanding how do I invest in myself versus investing in my community so that we can all win in the process?
Yeah, I'll take a shot at it. I mean, like you, Paige, I was kind of first generational as well. And you mentioned in an earlier question, I think you threw out the term like is there a guilt associated with it? And I'm just gonna be frank, not for me, no. All of us, I mean, we won't be here where we are. There's a nobody likes to talk about it, but there's obviously luck along the way, right? A bad decision that didn't turn out to be a disaster, right? Where it just as easily could have turned out to be a disaster. So none of us should act like it's just all great decision making and talent and hard work. There's people that prayed for us when we didn't even know they were praying for us. But that being said, though, I mean, I think a lot of times, it's become a thing to say, I'm not supposed to be here. Well, I don't say that, right? I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors. I always give homage to my ancestors. It's my responsibility to be here. So I've never really carried, the guilt that way. I obviously, will do whatever I need to do to kind of care for my extended family. But kind of going back to your other question about wealth, I think more about legacy now, more than anything else. I could no question about it, make more money today doing what Rashad was saying earlier, go back working for a large publicly traded company, go up, that ladder, you get all the stock options along the way. No question about I could have more short-term wealth, but it's going to come at a price, right? They're not giving that money away without you being on the road. My wife and I have a 15-year-old daughter, an 8-year-old son, and we determined 4 years ago our family operates better if I'm at home. So that becomes a non-starter for me. So I have to look at other ways, but to generate that wealth. But fundamentally, when I think about money and wealth at this point, I'm thinking about legacy and my children's children more than I'm thinking about, wealth in terms of current lifestyle. Now, I'm not going to lie, that's important. That's important too, but not to the degree that it sacrifices my future grandchildren and the legacy that I can build for them.
Jimmy, I love that, because when you said my family works better when I am present, that to me is a demonstration of value-based leadership. And so I would love to hear, Christina, your perspective too, like what your experience has been during your journey of success and what that may have meant for you and your family.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with my fellow panelists, and will try really hard not to repeat, but just say they already dropped the mic. So I'm going to take a couple of different points. So one, some of our other colleagues that we work with who may be of different backgrounds, have this notion of their parents or grandparents leaving them wealth, or they inherit money, or they inherited a house when they got married, or bought their first car for them. They showed up to school with a BMW that got passed down from their dad. My mother calls me for money. So I'll just be frank. You know, my mother calls me, and if I check my text message, she's probably on there right now. So just being frank, as African Americans, for many of us who were first generation to go to college, and first generation to be business professionals, or whatever the notion to be white collar workers and not blue collar workers, you know, that is the situation we're in. And thank God, I feel very fortunate to be able to help support my mother and support others in my family who have needs, to help give them support so they can do better for themselves. And so I count it a tremendous blessing to be able to serve that way. I agree with my panelists. I do not carry guilt. If you have guilt, turn that into drive. If you have guilt, turn that into energy and focus to set the example for your family, so that we break, you know, these notions that we're broke, or we can't do, or we can't be. You know, turn that into a focus of setting a new standard for your family and for your community. And then I would be remiss if I didn't make this comment about consumption, because I think, Paige, you mentioned African Americans, we are big consumers, and I am guilty. There are things I like. I happen to like certain leather bags, and I happen to like certain shoes. I won't show you my shoes right now. And I have a penchant for fast cars. So shout out to those in Indianapolis. I like fast cars. But I also have started a few years ago, just as a simple way, I started the notion that when I buy a luxury good from a said Italian or European company, I buy something from a Black-owned business. So I have found Black-owned businesses that have goods I really like and enjoy. You know, I love, for example, tote and carry luggage. If you've heard of that, I love tote and carry luggage. I love actively Black leisure wear. You know, if you're from Chicago, you know, I go on 79th Street and I buy from Black-owned businesses on 79th Street. So just small ways in a community where we have a lot of money that we spend and consume on things that we buy all the time, and remembering to try to put some dollars back into our own communities so that we can continue to build wealth for ourselves and for the African Americans at large.
You know, I want to add to that. So remember, I'm here sharing. I'm sharing. Listen, if there's a secret I know, I'm here to share it. I had
don't gatekeep, Rashad. We're not gatekeeping on this call. So
I had a conversation with a Black CEO of a Fortune 50 company. He had since moved on, and I'm sitting at his house, at this ridiculous house. Okay. And I asked him exactly the question that you asked me. How do you deal with family? How do you deal with the guilt that you have, they don't? And I'm going to tell you what he told me, because I've actually instituted it. He said, Rashad, I look at what the federal guidelines are on how much I can give away tax-free per person. I add that up for about 4 or 5 people. I set aside a pot of money every year. I do not give away money for anything. They have to present me with a business idea. I pay off school loans. I will help you with mortgages and debt, but I will not give you any money. He said, every dollar and dime that I've given someone in my family has been something to actively help them progress in their lives. I'm not giving you money. I'm going to give you the opportunity to help invest in your firm. I'm going to give you the opportunity to get a little bit more out of debt. I'm going to take this weight off of you. I'm going to do something to actively improve your life. And so I have no guilt either, because I do my part with my family. And you'd be surprised at how many people in your family who will come and ask you for money. And when you tell them, here are my guidelines, how many don't call you back?
Okay.
These are my guidelines. You want my money? You play by my rules. Tell me what the business opportunity is. I don't want a loan. I'm not going to loan it to you. I don't want it back. But tell me what it is. Tell me what the business opportunity is. Tell me what this loan is paying for. Tell me what, you know, how this is going to help you. Tell me why you need to refi, whatever the case may be. And I do it. No questions asked. But when that money's gone annually, I'm done for the year. Talk to me in January.
Absolutely. So Jimmy, and to the rest of the panelists, what are some key lessons, key um, insights that you were able to retrieve or glean from throughout your journey to where you are today? And it could be from, I know that some of you had already started your business before entering into grad school, but what are some key lessons and key insights that for future or current entrepreneurs who have early startup businesses, who might become easily deterred by certain barriers? What are some key lessons and insights that you would share to our guests here today?
I'm actually going to ask Leon to kick us off on this one.
Okay, thanks. Leon, what do you think?
I think the one of the biggest things that someone told me was, you can talk about what you want to do all day. You can tell people what you want to do all day, but people won't get excited about what you're telling them. They'll get excited about what you're doing. And so sometimes you have to take that leap of faith, even though it doesn't necessarily make to everybody. It's not perfectly aligned. I mean, we sometimes wait for the stars to perfectly align. Sometimes it won't happen. But people want to see what you're doing more than they want to hear what you're talking about. And so I think that one was something that really helped me pull the trigger and jump in head first with what we're doing with diversity and leadership. And then always look to add value, whatever that is. I mean, that's the nature of the world that we live in. It's, every thing should add value. So how do you uniquely add value to the spaces that you find yourself in? And if you always are adding value, you're always going to have opportunities. And that truly is what helps me kind of think about how we go about our business of diversity and leadership in my business as a father, as a husband, and as a member that is pretty active in the community.
Leon, you said something that was so important. I think it's really important that we bring it to the conversation today. We have to talk about faith. Okay? Everybody is nodding their head. And I feel that everyone is nodding their head because I feel like we know faith without works is dead, right? There's been a lot of work. I want to speak to the faith that you had to possess in order to be able to achieve your goals of where you are today. Where did that play a part? How did that connect to your Notre Dame journey?
For me in particular, actually was going to Purdue first. Purdue was the school I was going to. I had friends who had gone to Purdue and told me great things about Purdue. I just moved back to Indianapolis, and the thought was, okay, where can I plug in with a really strong network? And initially, I was, I went to my boss and I told her, hey, I want to go to Purdue and get my MBA. And she looked me dead in the face and said, no way. I was like, okay, all right. And so I put it on the back burner. Not something I brought up to her again. I switched roles probably 6 months later. I got the email from Notre Dame saying, hey, if you're still looking at MBAs, we've extended our deadline. And excuse the noise, I apologize. But I got the email. I called the guy, said, hey, tell me more about this opportunity. And went to my boss then, probably about 2 or 3 days in on the new role. And he said, if you want that, you go for it. And so I went for it. And so that's really how I got to Notre Dame. And it's been amazing since. So it really took faith to say, okay, now's not the time. I got to wait for the time that's right for me.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Jimmy or Christine or Rashad, would you like to jump in for that?
Yeah, I'll jump in. My and I mentioned ancestors earlier. I think one of the primary components of my faith is grounded in my ancestors. Ancestors, both, the micro level in terms of those that I actually knew, and the macro level in terms of the millions of those that I didn't know. And just knowing what our ancestors had to survive, for me, it puts a responsibility and duty on me that's much higher than just for me. You know, my grandfather worked construction his whole life, actually never learned to read or write. I owe it. I owe my success to my grandfather. If I'm not successful, I am letting my grandfather down. And I'm getting chill bumps, sorry. And when I was actually in the final stages of negotiating my position here, and I was kind of waffling back and forth, right? Was I really going to step out on it? It just happened. I don't know. I think my grandfather put it in front of me. I just happened to see a picture of his tombstone. And I realized that from the time that my grandfather was born until like the time that I would be starting in this new role, it was almost exactly 100 years. So that was it. I was like in the parking lot. I told the guy I was going to have to think about it. I didn't even leave the parking lot. I went right back upstairs and accepted the roles like, 2 generations removed. My grandfather's grandson is going to be the leader of this company. So my faith is really grounded in our collective ancestors.
Jimmy, don't make me cry on the Zoom now. Come on now. All right.
So I was starting a firm, and I had just gotten married the year before. My parents, my wife at the time, I'm happily divorced and remarried, but my wife at the time, my parents, my friends, I told them this idea that I wanted to start this firm. And everyone said, it's not a good time. It's not the time to do it. You don't have this, you don't have the money, you don't have the experience. And so I prayed about it. And so I had just gotten married. My wife and I, at the time, we went church hopping to find the church for our family. We end up at this church on the south side of Chicago, good old fashioned Baptist, everyone's running laps, the whole nine. I'm not that guy, I'm an engineer, right? I'm pretty cool. And this preacher who I'd never met before in my life is preaching a sermon, and he says, now's the time. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, now's the time to stop beating your kids. Now's the time to stop smoking. That message isn't for me. And he said, you started your firm, quit your job and work it full time, and God will take care of you. I cried like a baby. And 2 weeks later, I quit my job. 19 years later, we have over 300 people and over $120 million in revenue.
Rashad, what was that moment of surrender like for you?
I tell you, and again, I'm not that guy. I'm a pretty chill, I calculate, and everything that I had been praying for and everything that the world had been telling me I wasn't ready for, this man who I had never met this preacher before, to this, not that's one of my best friends today. This man I had never met before gave me a message that I had been longing to hear. I didn't have a choice but to quit my job and work this full time, because everything that I knew now was I was now walking in my purpose. And I found that out 19 years ago. And a lot of people are well into their 50s and 60s and never quite figure out their purpose. So I didn't have a choice. And so it stayed at the center of everything I do to this day.
Yeah, Paige, I have to jump in. Rashad, you are blessing me right now, brother, in ways that you don't even know, with some of the things that I've been contemplating doing from a business perspective. And another brother that's also in the YPO group that we're in gave me basically the exact same message that you're delivering today, just literally five days ago. So I want everybody to really hear what Rashad is saying, particularly your earlier comments too about there never being a perfect time. If you're waiting for the perfect time, you're never going to do it. So I just want to thank you, brother. You are blessing me tonight.
Hey, The time is now.
No, I totally agree, Jimmy. I think what you said is super powerful. I'm of the mindset and belief that God will send people into your life to be able to confirm what it is that you are supposed to do. I think that as believers in God and who practice our faith, that is also important to be able to pay attention to those signs and signals that we have. So before I get ready to change topics to introduce our next guest, Juliana Newville, class of 02, I would like to just, as a last round of tidbits to our attendees and guests, what would be your one takeaway for the people here when they are trying to be encouraged to take the next step to grow their business, or maybe they're not clear on what the next steps are? Just give us one takeaway that can pour into our audience here tonight that will encourage them, that will help maybe increase their faith, but also encourage them to connect with other Notre Dame alum and their current classmates who may be in the Mendoza program as well.
Well, I'll start, Paige, and thank you. And absolutely, all three brothers, Jimmy, Dr. Leon, Rashad, you all are blessing me. I love it. I love everything about what you have to say. So thank you. And thank you to all of those who made this come together. I'm so blessed and fortunate to be a part of the conversation. I will say two quick things. One, use all of the resources around you. Just know that if you're here and you're on this webinar, it's not by mistake that you're hearing all the things we have to say. It's not by mistake. We are, it's very clear that many of us are people of faith, either on this screen or those of you we cannot see. It's no mistake that you're here. Use all of your resources. What's inside of you, the power is inside of you, and then take whatever is around you, your education, your network, reach out to people, reach out to Notre Dame, reach out to friends, family. A lot of this is very trite, and I'm sure you've heard it in your classes about networking and using that as a tool, right? It's not about who you know, it's who knows you. However it works, right? You need to know people and you need to use all your resources. Go. At the end of the day, if you're just sitting still, you're going to get run over. So get started. Get started and continue to push forward and just be confident enough in yourself to know that you'll figure it out as you go. Failure is not the end. You know, there's someone I heard recently, not my words, that said, I never fail, because if I fail, I learned a lesson. So failure is not the end of the line. Failure in many cases is the beginning. I'm sure that's a whole conversation for another day. I'm sure we all have failures that we could share, but it was a restart. It was a reboot. It was a pivot. So you don't fail. You just learn a lesson that's going to make you better. And the second thing that I would leave with the group is, I just would be remiss if I didn't say, and I think you've seen it exhibited here on this esteemed panel, leadership is about service. Leadership is about service. At the end of the day, those of us that are so blessed to get to the top of where we get to the top, it is really about opening up the space for other people. If you do that, you are going to benefit. You are going to benefit by its nature. It is a principle in the earth, sowing and reaping, right? And so when you give it back. You get it back in many, many different ways that we cannot even enumerate. And I saw a class recently. It was actually an online class from a very esteemed university. I believe it was an Ivy League. The class was called Servant Leadership. And I was blown away that we need to have a class called Servant Leadership, right? Because my grandmother taught me about servant leadership. It's about that. Everything I know about leadership, I learned from my grandmother, who had a high school education. So at the end of the day, let's take what we know. Let's take what our ancestors taught us. Let's take the values and lessons and life skills that have been modeled for many of us as we grew up, and put those into play. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Jimmy, we'll move to you, and then we'll head over to Dr. Leon.
Yeah, I'd offer a few points. hard work never goes out of style, right? When all else fails, just outwork everybody. You're gonna be okay. Something I think about a lot now, and the saying that I've heard is comparison is the thief of joy. So I think particularly in this area of social media, where only thing that we see is everybody's best day, which half the time is made up anyway, it's real easy to play the comparison game. And it's just a fine line between looking at others and learning from those others and taking those learnings and incorporating them into your plans versus letting those comparisons steal your joy. One of the reasons why we put this particular panel together is to specifically show that there is no definitive right path. You know, all of us have taken a different path to get to where we are. It will happen earlier in careers and lives for some people. It'll happen later in careers and lives for other people. But just be very, very careful that the comparison doesn't turn to envy and cause you to pivot when you shouldn't be pivoting and missing that blessing in the process of doing so.
Thank you, Jimmy. We'll go to Leon and then Rashad. We'll wrap it up with comments, and then we'll head over to Juliana.
Yeah, so what I would say is when you don't know what to do, just do something. Oftentimes, you know, you think that there's a right or a wrong next step. You won't know until you try. But do something. I mean, again, you're much more likely to get closer just by doing whatever that is. If it's writing it down on paper, if it's calling somebody, if it's using your network, if it's you know, no matter what it is, just do something. And you're that much closer to wherever it is you want to be. You know, I think Brother Rashad said it earlier. You know, there's never a good time. You know, I talk to people all the time about going and getting an MBA, and they'll give me 60 reasons why, you know, an MBA at this time just doesn't make sense or it's not right for them. And it's like, there's never a good time. You know, when I started my MBA at Notre Dame, we had a small, you know, a 2-year-old, and well into the program, my wife started her doctorate, and we had our daughter. And so there never is a good time to start, because life's going to life, right? And so just you know, be okay with that, and make room for the things you want. And if you want something different, you got to do something different. I mean, that's you know, something I truly believe. If you want more, you got to do more. You know, it's not going to fall in your lap, not very often. You got to be in the right place at the right time, and that didn't happen by accident. And you got to be prepared. And that's one thing that I've always said to myself is, you know, I'd rather have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. The worst thing for me would be someone to come to me and say, hey, you're the perfect person for this role, except you don't have, you know, I heard a guy say the other day, I'd rather be a warrior in the garden than a gardener trying to get ready for war, right? And it's better to be prepared for that moment when it comes and not have to use it than be in that moment and need it and say, man, I wish I had. But Notre Dame is a great space with great people, and it's not going to do the work for you. You have to do the work. But if you do the work, the network will show up, and the value of the brand and the space will show up as well.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Rashad, will wrap up with you.
Well, I mean, frankly, they took a lot of the good ones. I will say something that was beat into me years ago. Excuses are tools used by the incompetent. They build bridges to nowhere and tunnels of nothingness. Those who excel in excuses often excel in nothing else. I will say that there's always going to be an excuse. There's always
Rashad,
a reason.
I'm sure if it was beaten to you, it's probably like a non-hazing
What?
organization.
I can't hear you right now.
Oh.
Alpha Fraternity Incorporated does not haze.
No, right.
So
Nothing was
no,
beaten to you. You just
absolutely
know what
not.
excuses are.
Absolutely not.
Oh, six, my brother.
There you go. But the second thing that I'll say is just finish. Oftentimes we look at reasons why we start something and just don't finish it. I can't tell you how many students drop out. I was kicked out of undergrad twice. I had a 2.1 GPA in engineering. I should not be here today, right? But I finished 7 years, 2 expulsions, all types of marks on my record. After my first job, no one's ever asked me what my GPA was ever again. Finish. If you start a master's program, finish. If you start a PhD program, finish. If you start a task on your job, finish.
Finish.
That's my message. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Johnson. I really do appreciate that. And I love that somebody was really cracking up at your comments. And so I just want to say that if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put those in the comments. But for those who are interested in continuing the conversation or really understanding the dedicated space that we have for our Notre Dame Professional Network alumni, I want to introduce Juliana Newville, who is the class of 02, who is over Irish Compass and is in charge of this particular space, and who will be able to help us continue this conversation beyond tonight. So Juliana, if you would like to join us.
Thanks, Paige. How are you this evening?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
So I hope Irish Compass rings familiar for many of you this evening. Irish Compass is Notre Dame's official professional community for current students and alumni. And since we launched almost 7 years ago, there are over 27,000 active members. There's a lot that you can do on Irish Compass as you successfully manage your career. And tonight, I have the pleasure of sharing an overview of the Alumni Business Directory on Irish Compass. So, have you ever wondered where to find and support alumni-owned businesses like Ardmore Roderick, led by CEO Rashad Johnson, or Dealers Wholesale, led by CEO Jimmy Rayford? Or if you've simply wondered, where can you promote your own business to fellow alumni? Well, let me show you. Irish Compass has an alumni business directory. So here you can list your business and you can tell information about your business that then makes it filterable and discoverable. So in Irish Compass, under Connect, you would simply select groups, and the very first group is the Alumni Business Directory. There is a search bar if you know the name of the person or the company that is a member of this directory that you want to connect with, and it will find them instantly. Or you can search by location, industries, or my favorite is more filters. And here under more filters, you can search by information specific to the company. So business description. So when you list your business on Irish Compass, you really want to build out your about section of your company with specific keywords that alumni can find when they come in to search for you. And so those would be found under description. Be sure to list your business industry, where you're located, the name, social media handle. I'd be very impressed if someone were able to search by a specific company's social media handle, but maybe. Alumni business type really helps you focus your search. Family-owned, minority, women, LGBTQ, or veteran-owned companies. When you join and list your company, you can signify the type, and then that becomes searchable and filterable. So I encourage you not only to join Irish Compass, irishcompass.nd.edu, but to join the Alumni Business Directory. if you have a restaurant, a technology company, any kind of company that employs up to 500, you are welcome to list your business here. And if you're interested in supporting, you simply click the join button and you're in and you're able to network and connect and support your fellow alumni who own these amazing businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliana. And I just want to just emphasize like how important this particular space is, because once again, we get to really tap into one of the best global networks that I know of, and that is the Notre Dame Alumni Network. And so please make sure that you're able to do that. Juliana, are you able to share how people are able to sign up for Irish Compass on here really quickly before we go into other questions?
Yes, thank you. So visit irishcompass.nd.edu and you can sync your LinkedIn profile. So it may be hard to remember another username and password, but LinkedIn and the Irish Compass profile can be synced so that when you make changes on LinkedIn, you can then import those directly to Irish Compass. You don't have to use a new login, and those two would then sync and connect. So if you visit and use that, you simply join as an alum, answer the questions, complete your profile, and we will approve it and you'll automatically be in and able to connect. And it's free.
And it's free. Also, thank you, Juliana. We want to make sure that everyone make sure they sign up. Make sure that you have registered your particular business if you have one. But as we know, we have alumni from all over the world. This is our dedicated space to making sure that we can all stay in connection with one another. So please do sign up for that. Before we prepare to depart, I also just want to make sure that I give a shout out to our guests and our attendees tonight. Please submit any questions that you have on the question or on our Q&A to be able to submit to our panelists for questions that you might have. Let's see here. All right. So Christina, I am going to pick on you a little bit as the only woman present here on the panel. One of the questions that I have here for you, and it's only one question, so if anyone wants to submit something else, please let me know. But when it comes to your womanhood in leadership and the intersectionality of being a Black woman, what has been that experience for you while operating within your purpose?
Well, that's a heavy question. That's a heavy question. So I'll say a couple of things. One, and I love, obviously we're in a safe space here among the thousands of people who are probably watching this webinar, but I would say it even if it were an open space. Just to be frank, it is not easy. I think the brothers here have said one way or another, what we do here is not a faint of heart. I would love to just say in 2024, the notion of being a woman, the notion of being African-American, the notion of being a woman of color in corporate America is welcoming and inclusive and empowering and uplifting, and just show up at yourself and you know that you can be successful. Not true, period. Now, it is better in 2024 than it was in 2004, certainly than it was in 1994. So we've made a lot of strides. But I just want to be honest and say, to ascend to levels of leadership and to show up as we have to every day and outwork everybody to continue to be successful and leave a legacy for our friends, our family, our communities, it is not easy, however, very doable. Very doable. And I believe firmly that if you set your mind to it, if you leverage your resources, if you keep going, if you keep doing, it is very doable. You can get there. And I welcome it because I feel like the more and more and more that of us who get to the top, we can change the trajectory of this whole thing. I believe that more African Americans should be in leadership because we come with values, we come with faith and spirituality and a people first mentality, and we believe in legacy, and we believe in results and treating people right. So corporate America will benefit, boards of directors will benefit, the country and the world will benefit when more of us are in leadership. So let's go. Let's get there and do what you can. Leverage every resource that you can, including us on this screen, to help you get there. It's very doable. There's lots of help out there. I have a longtime friend and mentor who I worked with very, very early in my career. I worked with her when I was very junior, and we've stayed in close relationship throughout my career, and it has been tremendously helpful for me as I've ascended through levels of leadership to have that person who I can trust, who I can bounce ideas, who challenges me, who helps me, who doesn't let me celebrate too long. I always tell this story about my mentor. I said, I made my career goal. I became a chief financial officer. I've always wanted to be a CFO. I was like so happy to tell, I got the job. I celebrated. And she was like, celebrate today. And then tomorrow we're going to work on your plan for what's next. So having those people in your life who celebrate with you and love you, but always challenge you to not ever stop until you're at the end of your capacity. So that's what I would say, Paige.
Paige, can I add something to that?
Yep, and you can close this out, Mr. Jimmy. I just wanted to say thank you, Christina, for sharing that. My intention was not to give a very emotionally taxing question, but I think that is so important to be able to highlight that intersectionality. And as another woman who was here on the call here with you, I recognize that lift that comes along with those particular identities that could be difficult to understand if you don't experience that particular intersectionality. So yes, thank you for that. And Jimmy, you will close us out for the evening. Before I head over to you, I just want to thank everyone again who has come to log in to be a part of this conversation. We hope that you have been inspired, and we hope that you will continue to be in contact with us so that we can support you. Jimmy, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, what we've done tonight is really just a great example of community. And I think, what has happened through a lot of our collective experiences, and in some way is buried in our DNA, is we always feel like we have to walk around with this armor on, right? We just got to be strong all the time. We just have to wear this armor. And in some ways, we forget sometimes that we don't have to wear that armor necessarily with each other. So I think embedded inside of this, one of the things Christina said about her mentor is we have to get into spaces in community with people where we don't have to wear that armor, and we can be truly vulnerable, because between all of us, there's no reason why we have to figure out these things in isolation, right? If I don't know it, right, I can spend a lot of time working, trying to figure it out, or I could just call up Rashad and he can spit the game to me like he's done tonight. So my final thoughts would be around like finding community so that we can have this growth together. We can get there much faster together than we can ever do it individually.
Amazing. Thank you, Jimmy. I just want to thank ThinkND. I also want to thank the Black Alumni Association of Notre Dame. I would like to go ahead and transition over to Kendra, who will go ahead and give us our closing remarks. Thank you to all of our panelists and to our guests who have attended. And also thank you to Ms. Kelsey Foyer, who has been pivotal, who has been an important part in making sure that this has all happened this evening.
Yes, and I would be remiss. Leon, Dr. Jackson his hand is up. So, bro, come on.
I just wanted to invite anyone who, if you know anyone who might be a good fit for Notre Dame, or you think would love the experience. Diversity and leadership is a great pathway. We do offer significant scholarships, not only to Notre Dame. And so if there's anyone that has any interest in the program, it's changeatthetop.com. And so really the goal is to really bring us in, get us in those seats, because we have a lot to say. We have a lot to contribute. And so love to have, you or someone you think would be a good fit for diversity and leadership. Would love to have them come and work with us. So thank you so much. Sorry.
No, we're not apologizing for making sure we support each other. This is what Jimmy was just talking about, community. I know I was off screen listening. I just want you to know that if you would have seen me on screen, you would have seen the snapping, the head, the come on now. In fact, Kelsey and I in the background was like, Zoom needs to start giving us the snap emoji. Like they are missing that for the culture. So just know that my phone was blowing up with the nuggets you all were dropping. I am so full. The message reached me, and I'm a new entrepreneur. I'm an educator. That's my life passion. I was a teacher, a school principal, a district leader, and now I'm out in this world trying to move the needle for women in leadership. And what y'all just dropped, I'm like, ooh, I got to come on. I'm on the train. So my husband and I are going to be strategizing at the end of this call to just do it. Rashad, finish like I thought I was finished. Nah, I'm not. So thank you so much. This is the space that we are curating to bring together these beautiful minds, not only to remind us of why our Alumni Association exists to do this, but also to cultivate the legacy. You heard that a lot with what you said. And next week, we continue the conversation right here. So everything that you all talked about in terms of faith walking, in terms of just do it, in terms of what Christina said, like, yeah, no, period. That was hard. The reality of what we have to do to walk in our faith all comes to, so how do we stay well in doing this? So next week, our conversation is going to be about Black well-being. How do we succeed in our well-being spiritually, financially, as a community, as we do this socially? And we're just excited to have that conversation. The other thing that's happening this month is there are a number of clubs around the United States that are hosting Black History Month events similar to this. One I want to amplify is the New York City Club that's hosting another trailblazing conversation, this time with members of our Notre Dame community that have been first in athletics. So please, you look for those in our social media posts on our page. If you're in the New York City tri-state area, please make sure you register for that. You'll have the opportunity to hear from 3 Notre Dame trailblazers on February 22nd, live and in person. That event is going to support the Fraser Thompson Scholarship, which is our scholarship in the name of Fraser Thompson, who was the first Black graduate of the University of Notre Dame. Those dollars go to support students not only coming into Notre Dame in terms of merit scholarships, but helping them persist through professional learning, abroad programs, and other diversity and equity inclusion programs. So please make sure you do that. But you don't have to go to that to give to Fraser Thompson. That door is always open. And last, I just want to say, we cannot stop this type of energy at all, right? The flywheel is going. So that means I need to see all of you at our triangular, try to say that word at this point, triannual reunion. Every 3 years, the Black Alumni of Notre Dame hosts a reunion on campus. This is the year after COVID, we're bringing it back. So please be on campus May 31st to June 2nd. We will have the opportunity for this type of conversation, for fun, but also some intellectual stimulation. We have some special guests that we can't reveal quite yet that are going to be on campus, but also the best part is coming together, having this type of community, sharing the geniuses that we are, and enjoying each other's company. So I want to thank you all again for this opportunity to listen, this opportunity to learn with you. And I'd like to thank the 7,000 plus people who've registered to listen to the work that we have to share and also to be a force for good. With that said, good night, everyone, and go Irish.